We have the Embargo Act of 1807, which basically we were getting tired of all these different violations to our neutrality, even because they were having their own problems in Europe with France and England. So, the Embargo Act of 1807 was meant to stop or forbid all foreign countries from trading with the United States. So we wanted to completely get out of the mix and be our own, do our own thing. This was a huge disaster. We have the Non-Intercourse Act of 1807, which reopened trade except to France and England. It was still a disaster. So the Embargo Act was for us to get rid of all those problems by not trading with anybody. It was a huge disaster because we obviously couldn't make any money because we couldn't trade with anybody. So the Non-Intercourse Act of 1809 was meant to reopen it. We're just not going to trade with the people that are causing the problems, France and England. It was still a disaster because our major customers were France and England. So it still didn't really work. So we have Macon's bill. Macon was a congressperson in the United States. He created Macon's bill number 2, which basically promised to end the embargo against the countries that would respect Americans' rights. So basically saying, all right, we'll trade with everybody, but you just have to respect our rights. France agreed, and the embargo remains against Britain because they never agreed to it. So this political cartoon on the left hand is a very was a political cartoon meant as propaganda for the Embargo Act of 1807. During the same time, we have problems not only happening with the European powers, but also at home. We have General William Henry Harrison. Yes, the guy that was president for only 30 days. He was a general during this time. We have Tecumseh. Know who Tecumseh is? Tecumseh is the guy in the top right hand corner. He was a Native American leader who sought to unite all Native Americans. So remember, the reason Native Americans we were able to take them over so quickly, even though they were here first and there were a lot more of them in the beginning, was because they were all individual. They were all kind of like their own little nation, their own little country. But Tecumseh was the first Native American leader that was like, I know that we have all these different groups. We have the Sioux. We have the all these different groups from different parts. Let's unite them all and try to be one Native American like country. So he was the first one to attempt to do that. We have the Battle of Tippecanoe, where Harrison defeated the Native Americans. In and this was and during this battle, yes, we won over the Native Americans. So Tecumseh and his united Native American leaders were not able to succeed. And on top of that, the British, because they were pissed off about the Macon's bill, were trading with France. Britain aided and encouraged the uprising by Tecumseh. So he was trying to stir up trouble in our home turf, in our home country. This resulted in an increase in American expansion because now we took over the Native Americans again and moved them further west. And Britain's interaction made Americans very mad. And we have the War of 1812, very, very, very pointless war. We have war hawks, young congressmen that favored the war with Britain. Remember, we're having all these troubles with Britain. They're having troubles with France, and they try to get us in the middle. And on top of that, they're stealing our soldiers and forcing them to work, be soldiers for their navy. So we have war hawks, like young congressmen that favored war with Britain. This include Henry Clay and John C. Calhoun. Both of these people are going to be important later on. We have the must know battle. Some must know battles in the War of 1812. It happened in New Orleans. Jackson became a hero. Yes, Jackson, the guy that's on the $20 bill, the guy that eventually became president. In this battle of the War of 1812 in New Orleans, he became a hero because he won in record number of time and with few losses. However, it was pointless because England and the United States had already ended the war. So the War of 1812 ended, but the Battle of New Orleans still happened, and this occurred after the war ended. So it took long to get the news. This was a time before cell phones or Twitter or text messages. The war was happening in New Orleans, but in reality, it was already over. So it was a pointless battle. We have the Hartford Convention. This is a very important one. It was the demise of the Federalist Party. The Federalists wanted to add an amendment increasing requirements to declare war and threaten with secession, basically saying if we don't get what we want, we're going to secede from the nation. This proved to be the end of the party, the demise of the Federalists, because they were seen as traitors and deserters. The impact of the War of 1812, was that it was a war between the British and the Americans, remember we were having all these problems with them, was that neither side gained or lost anything. So by the end of the war, nothing was gained, nothing was lost. We just lost lives. It was a pointless war. The War of 1812 was a pointless war. However, it did give a rise of nationalism because technically we did win, and it was considered the second Revolutionary War, because yes, we were fighting for independence again, but now we proved it. So we won the Revolutionary War. The War of 1812 was kind of like proving it that we could take care of ourselves, that we were our nations, and Britain had to respect our status. It was called the Second War of Independence because we were fighting against Britain. That's when they burned down the White House, and they started to encourage uprising in our own country, but we still won. So it raised nationalism. This is when the Star Spangled Banner was created. It wasn't created during the First Revolution War, it was created during this one. And it gave rise to future presidents Andrew Jackson and William Henry Harrison. Basically, the War of 1812 was a pointless war. We didn't lose or win anything, any land. It was just to reinstate our nationalism, and it was considered the Second War of Independence.